Hi, I'm Cheryl Brunette, and today we're going to look at twisting stitches by knitting or purling through the back loops. Last time I showed you this series of selvage stitches, and when I got here I said these end garter stitches were created by twisting them and knitting through the back loop. Let's look at that process today. In general, in North America and Europe, the prevailing style of regular knitting or stockinette stitch looks like this. There's a very smooth progression of each line of knitting that goes. You can see that thread goes under those two, comes up, goes around, behind those two, but it's all it has all forward motion. And we get this effect by knitting into the front of the leg. Notice that every loop that's on the needle sort of has a leg that's in front and a leg that's in back, meaning that it's on the side opposite us. And when we're doing stockinette stitch, we knit into the front. If we're knitting from this way, the needle goes from left to right. And when we're purling, we insert again into that front leg, but from right to left. And this time we have the yarn in front and we wrap around counterclockwise. In both cases, we wrap the yarn around counterclockwise. And again, this is just a convention. This is how, this is the habit that we've gotten into. However, if we work our stitches through these back legs, the ones that are on the opposite side of the needle from us, it twists the stitches. And here's an example of all twisted knit stitches. I purled the stitches regularly, and then when I came back, I knit all of these stitches through the back loop. Regular purl row, these are knit through the back loop. And you can see, instead of that nice smooth progression, let's take this thread. We follow it, it goes under there, and it crosses over, goes behind there, comes around, and crosses under that stitch right there. So you've got you're crossing, you've got the thread is crossing, this one especially is crossing under the other one. This is every other row. If I cross both the knits and the purls by knitting through the back and purling through the back, notice how every row is twisted. It makes actually a very interesting and nice texture. I have not ever used the whole fabric this way of twisted stitches because it tends to bias for me. I think there's a way, in fact, I would love to sort of play with it and figure out a way to compensate, twist one row in one direction and the other row in the other direction. It wouldn't be that hard to do, but you can see that this is shorter. It pulls the stitches down because you're twisting them, and so your yarn isn't flowing as freely. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows are that tall. Up here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right under there. They're considerably shorter from there to there. So let me show you how we do that. On the knit side, we insert in the back, wrap around counterclockwise, pull it through, and there's our twisted stitch. Let me do it again so that you can see it. See how that's twisted at the bottom of that stitch? Let me work a regular stitch by knitting into the front leg. And when we have the two of them together, it's subtle, the difference, but you can see that these two legs are next to one another of the V. Of these two legs, this one crosses under that one. On the purl side, in order to purl through the back loop, again, this is how we do a regular purl, right through the front loop from right to left. We have to bring our needle up a little bit like this, find that back leg, and insert into the back leg. So we're actually coming from the left side of that stitch and purl through it. This is a little bit more cumbersome than knitting through the back loop, but it certainly isn't that difficult. Again, these needles are a little long to get them in front of the camera. Here we go. Insert. This is the easiest way to do it, is to bring the needles up so they form almost a little tent in front of you. Purl through the back loop. Let me show you one more time that if we were purling regularly, we would purl that way. Instead, we pivot that needle and purl through the back loop. Okay, so let's once again look at this little twisted garter stitch edge, but on a little bit bigger scale. Here is regular garter stitch, and as soon as I started twisting by knitting on both sides through the back loop, notice how these little knots, these garter stitch knots, got larger. So they're much more decorative. They're like little beads. But this was the thing that surprised me. This is 2 stitches of garter. This was regular garter. And as soon as I started doing the twisted end garter stitch, I didn't twist that stitch, just the very end stitch, both on the right side of the fabric and the wrong side of the fabric. And notice how it opened up the width between these rows. I did not notice this at the smaller scale. These garter rows are pulled more tightly together. And when I went back and looked at the original swatch, sure enough, these are the ones with the twisted edge stitches. They opened up. They spread out so that it's almost as if this gauge is longer than stockinette. I'm not entirely sure. I would have to do a larger swatch. I would have to play with it a little bit. But this might be a great edging stitch for stockinette because it's not as short as garter, which tends to pull that in. So there we have it. Knitting through the back loop and purling through the back loop. Thank you for joining me today. And next time we're going to look at some slipped stitch selvage edges. Until then, be well and enjoy your knitting. Just enjoy it. You don't even have to do anything but play. That went on forever. That was terrible. Well, no, but it was a really nice long pause. Maybe you will like that. Will you like that? We'll try one more time.